How's it going, Vigilantes? Welcome back to a brand new Arrow review for episode 5 of season 8, titled Proshnish. I can't remember the exact name. It's something in Russian starting with a P. So this episode was quite a tame, yet, still very interesting episode of Arrow. And I say tame just in comparison to all the episodes we have got so far for season 8, and probably some more explosive ones coming. But, out of all of them, especially compared to a previous season of Arrow, this was way up there. But compared to all of the ones we've had so far, I would say this is relatively tame, but it's also kind of, fitting and feeling out the furniture, so to speak, of the new characters being added in to present day. And we've already had that, of course, last episode with Mia, William, and the others, coming to present day. And in this episode, we didn't have Connor Hawke. The focus this episode was mainly on Mia and William on this kind of Green Arrow family trip to, of course, where would Oliver take his kids? To Russia, to meet Anatoly, to fight in a freaking fight club. Yeah, very typical kind of vigilante family styled holiday. But overall, this episode was enjoyable. The end was very interesting, and I can't wait to see the fallout for that. And to be honest, it was very fitting because we need to get the ball rolling on more things like that in Crisis. And Lila, I feel, was the next domino in the pile of them to fall over, because obviously her being Harbinger means big things for Crisis, and she can let us in on a lot of information to do with Marnovu and explain that to the whole team. So before we get into the specific details of this review, guys, be sure to leave a like on it if you are enjoying the content. I'll leave a card above for my Flash review. If you watch The Flash, I do review that show as well, so make sure you check that out. It will also be on the end card of this video. But other than that, subscribe and let's get into this review. So the beginning of the episode saw Oliver teaching Mia about how to shoot the arrow into the tennis balls. Basically, this was like a whole montage of Mia and Oliver training. It was really cool, showing her the specialty arrows. And this is one thing I would just say right off the bat. And I didn't think I would actually find myself saying this, and I know there's other people out there who actually don't feel this way, which is why I'm even more surprised that this is coming from my mouth. But in this episode, I didn't really find Mia or William annoying. And in fact, I'm enjoying William more, I'd say. But I think as a general consensus in terms of my feelings on this is that I'm enjoying these characters in present day. Now, I did say that last episode. That's kind of the point. They do kind of fit better in the present day than the future scenes. Of course, there were moments, I guess, where Mia was a little bit annoying, but I kind of understand the context. Whereas, as much as there was drama in this episode, that seemed kind of pointless when you kind of looked at it by the end of the episode. It was still some clarity that needed to be made between the family, like Oliver, and the kids. And at the end of the day, and I'll get into this a little bit more specific later, perhaps, Mia doesn't really know everything that I think a lot of us assume she would know about her father, whether that's many different things about his past, one of them not even being the Bratva, which is, fair enough. I don't think she cares too much about that. But another big one being actually Crisis on Infinite Earths and the stakes of the multiverse that are hanging in the balance. Anyway, on to the main stuff this episode. If you guys remember from last week, well, it wasn't even last week, but from the last episode, it looks like Oliver is looking to weaponize antimatter, because apparently he can replicate that. And, I can't put one and one together because I'm sure it will be more complicated than this. But if I was going to attempt to do that, I'm guessing he will create some kind of, we know this already, he wants to create a weapon that I guess he can use against, well, for now, Marnovu, but we know it will probably be used against the Anti-Monitor. Now, I don't think it would be as predictable as like a antimatter arrow of destiny that he used, for example, against, in the Elseworlds crossover. So I don't know how they're going to go about using this weapon, and it seems a bit like, I don't know. Is it kind of underwhelming to you guys that it's just like, oh, we found a way to replicate antimatter, and, in theory, we can use this to stop the Anti-Monitor or something? If it's going to be that simple, which I'm sure it's not going to be, and it's a bit like, And obviously that's what they were doing this episode, getting the plutonium. That was Diggle's side of the story, which introduced Roy Harper this episode. And then we had, of course, Oliver taking Mia and William to Russia to get the plans as well. But before we take that dive into the past of Russia and, what that means to Oliver Queen in general and how I thought of that all this episode, we need to talk about what else happened in last week's episode, which was, of course, Laurel was asked to kind of betray Oliver in terms of when he's going after these plans, like she needs to get him and give him to the Monitor. why. I read a lot of your comments, and obviously you could say, like, just like what the Monitor did in Elseworlds and what he kind of does anyway, is test people. He believes through chaos becomes order or whatever. And a lot of you were pointing stuff like that out, and I was kind of hoping by the end of this episode, the real test would be that she didn't kind of betray Oliver, and we'll get to that. We had the reveal to Laurel that Lila appeared and that she's working with the Monitor, and I have to admit, in this scene I really did like the struggle on Laurel's face, in terms of she really wasn't happy even having this conversation, or just coming to terms that she's about to betray people again. Like, she is like kind of that bad guy everyone always makes her out to be, which made I feel like Laurel had a really good story this episode, especially by the end of the episode, which we'll get into with that ending scene later. But it just shows this growth that she's had, and it really does feel genuine to me. And also just when like Anatoly said that thing to her towards the end, and just how taken back she is, it just reminds me of when Oliver said that comment to her in like episode 1 or 2, episode 1 I think it was, and how taken back she was there. She wants nothing but this recognition that people are giving her. So this story for her, with now being offered her Earth back to betray again, is a very unique and interesting one. And it's also interesting to note that Lila said that Marnovu didn't destroy Earth 2. I mean, that kind of makes sense anyway, with the antimatter wave from, you can only assume to be the anti-Monitor. But of course, I just wanted to address that because there were some theories out there from people saying, but what if the Monitor did that because it was to give Oliver this conviction in his mission to save the multiverse? It was a necessary sacrifice. I mean, there was a bit of ambiguity there, so I kind of get where people were coming from with that theory. But Lila did say that he's trying to save worlds, not destroy them. But that kind of made me think, well, to be fair, he has destroyed multiple Earths. So the perfect example being Earth 90, where obviously in Earth 90's Barry Allen, John Wesley Shipp's Flash, escaped just in time. And that was all in order so he could find heroes to go up against the anti-Monitor. So considering he's actually destroyed worlds in order for the greater good, I didn't think it was a far cry for some to say that maybe he did destroy Earth 2 for the reasons I just said, to make sure Oliver was on task, which, you know, is pretty messed up. But I wouldn't put it past Marnovu, to be honest. I really wouldn't. Now, famous last words from Oliver saying, I think I can teach, you know, the kids without showing them the bad. And, you know, that's not realistic. If you're going to Russia, of course, the Bratva and history are going to come up. And this is where Oliver obviously took the kids to Russia, and it all ended up in a Fight Club situation. And it was great seeing Anatoly, by the way. I much prefer him on this side of the fence than obviously him being enemies with Oliver Queen. This really does feel like the kind of family that Arrow has established with certain characters coming back for many seasons. And obviously Anatoly definitely has that feel, and in this episode he was just great. But as I kind of teased earlier, it did feel like a little bit back and forth at times, which, you know, was also predictable as I was watching it, whilst I did understand why they wrote this in, because there is mystery surrounding her father for Mia and stuff like that. But what I mean specifically is when Oliver decided to bring them to Russia and then says, oh, you can't come with me, and then they kick up a fuss, and then he does bring them, and then like something else happens and he says, like, you know what, but when I look at you, all I do see is my children. It's just like, it was a bit back and forth like that, which is why I think I can tell why some people are getting a bit impatient and frustrated with certain characters maybe. But nevertheless, I did find it like a very powerful moving scene when yet again Oliver kind of tried to justify his decision and the promise that he made to Felicity to protect the kids. And he said, like, in no past, no future, no multiverse or whatever, he would ever take that decision back. And that's when Mia stormed off, which brings back the point I made earlier about it does kind of seem, unless I'm missing something, that she doesn't have any idea why he made whatever sacrifice he did. So just explain it. Explain it. Like, as I said, the ending scene was the perfect opportunity to do that. I mean, I know he hasn't done it yet, but like, Oliver already knows he's going to die in Crisis. So I just think I'm a bit frustrated with that aspect. For all I know, it's coming next week. I mean, it will be coming inevitably. But if they're going to try and like keep it going up until the point where Oliver dies and then Mia just realizes, oh, so this is why that would be ridiculous. So I feel like they should have explained it at the ending scene. Maybe she would have asked, so why did you leave us, Dad? And then he says, well, you know, this cosmic being, blah, 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 asked me to do this. And if I didn't do it, you'd be dead anyway. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that needs to come very quickly. I loved all of the action. You know, obviously Oliver against the Goliath Steph, but then eventually it went to Mia and Oliver against 6 people, which is just absolutely crazy. That was actually not just before, when there was a cool reference to On the Line, where Mia had to ring the bell, and she practically did almost do it, which just kind of shows how badass she is. I believe all of that context to it because she was trained by Nissa Al Ghul, as she professed. But yeah, I'm enjoying all of this. The characters are much more suited into present day. I still think they're far from perfect, especially Mia, but it's just nice that I'm not finding them nearly as irritating, and mainly Mia as irritating as I found her before. But this still doesn't make me feel extremely confident about the Star City 2040 show. And why do I call it that when I've been calling it, the Green Arrow and the Canary spin-off? And that is because Mark Guggenheim is confirmed on Twitter. This was actually in the air before anyone says, well, duh, it was going to be set in the future. A lot of people have been thinking ever since that spin-off and backdoor pilot was announced for this season that possibly it would be set in present day. For one reason or another, rather than her returning to the future. But now it's been confirmed that it is 2040, which, it makes things a lot less interesting. Like, I wasn't interested in this show anyway, but it would have been more interesting with her in present day. I know that would be timey-wimey, but Star City 2040 and then what was going on that end of this, flash forwards last season and stuff, and early this season, it wasn't, they should probably have stuck to present day. But we're going to have to wait and see how that pans out. Now let's talk a little bit about Roy Harper. Colton Haynes is back to reprise his role as Roy Harper. And I really enjoyed their scenes this episode. Shared with Diggle. He went and visited him when he was fixing cars, brought the suit. And it turned out to be quite a bit of an exaggeration. I mean, technically it isn't, because you could argue, hey, this is the crisis. It is no exaggeration, but we need your help. But once Diggle started talking about how his son, or his adopted son, Connor Hawke, has returned and how he is quite capable and how he could have tagged along, Roy got kind of a bit insecure in the sense of, hey, well, this is what I mean, you didn't need me. And obviously he's really struggling with that bloodlust. But what really intrigued me is when Diggle explained about the future, which was really cool, because I thought that line when Roy said, once we're done, I'm going to disappear to a place where William can't even find me. And obviously that would have, set up Roy on the island in the flash forward scenes at the beginning of season 7. And I just kind of thought to myself, well, William does find you. But then they kind of flipped it with Diggle actually saying his future, saying you only go to help the kids and save Star City anyway, so why not start doing that now? And then by the end of the episode, it turns out he is going to stick around for a while. Which, I think this is one of the biggest questions amongst a lot of people at the minute is, how are things going to impact the future with what's going on in present day? So does this mean that Roy won't go to Lianyu now? I mean, assumingly he doesn't, because he knows all of that and he doesn't want to do that now. So what will the ripple effect be? Or will, no matter what, time will find a way for itself to still let things happen, even if it's slightly different? I would love to know your thoughts there and what impacts this could actually have on the future. I mean, obviously the future is going to be different to a degree, but I don't know, it's kind of confusing. And to be fair, I do get what Diggle was saying with how belonging to a team will be a way for him to control his bloodlust, but at the same time, we did see Roy go ham this episode, and if Diggle didn't stop him, he may very well have beat that guy to death, just kind of like what happened before. The reason why I'm struggling to believe this is not everyone, on every single mission where they go out, let's say Roy does stay with the team and things change in the future, like you can't always rely on somebody to be there every single time, just like the first time. Surely this is going to happen again, whether it's in 6 months time, a year's time, 2 years time, somebody's going to be busy with another enemy and Roy will be over there in a corner in the other room giving in to his bloodlust, and then I feel like history will repeat itself. But at the moment we're just kind of supposed to believe that, hey, be a part of the team and that would be the way to control it, like I'm sure it'll go well. Well, that's what was happening before and it didn't work. So I don't know, just some thoughts. But that more or less brings us to the end of the episode. Like, we've already kind of briefly went over the Fight Club stuff, the Brat were involved, they got the plans in the end, whoopie-doo kind of thing. But that is when we saw Laurel meet Lila on the rooftop at the end, and I like how this episode just made you think the whole way through, and I truly believed it, that Laurel, at the end of the day, she was offered to save her Earth. But then that scene happened where she was like, well, this is going to be awkward. Oliver and Diggle walk in, and Lila is just like, Oh shit. I don't know, I just found this moment really good because I don't know that there's been so much crap before between John and Lila, and now again he's found out this and he's literally like, I almost didn't want to believe it, and there you go. It turns out she has been keeping such a huge thing from him. No matter what, I can't see how this will go down smoothly, because even though it is multiverse business of Lila's and she's the Harbinger, doesn't really matter. You could have told Diggle. But either way, as I was saying back towards the beginning of this video, Lila seemed disappointed that she didn't get the plans of Laurel and she decided not to join forces with the Monitor and betray Oliver, even though she did smile when she said, you know, it turns out you have changed. Do you guys think that the real test was to make sure Laurel wouldn't betray Oliver and that she did shine through? Or do you think that, no, they really did want the plans and for her to betray him? I don't know. At the end of the day, I think the Monitor has the best intentions for the multiverse, because we still see him bring Felicity way into the future to the Paradise Dimension, or whatever you want to call it, to join Oliver. So we know that post-crisis, he still fulfills that end of the bargain. So I don't know. I would love to know what you guys make of this kind of mess of what really is going on and what is the larger plan, what is the Monitor gathering in terms of all of these ingredients, if you will. But what I'm looking forward to now is Harbinger kind of giving all this information to her husband, but not only her husband, but Oliver as well. I think we're going to get a lot more clarity now, especially the closer we get to Crisis. But overall, guys, this episode was pretty decent. As I said right at the beginning, wasn't the best of the season in terms of like the most spectacle being displayed. It was more of like a in-between episode where we explored the relationship between Oliver's children and him, and I'm actually enjoying it. Like, seriously, let me know what you guys thought of this episode down in the comments below. Other than that, like this video if you did enjoy it, everyone, as it really does show support for the content on this channel. You can join my Discord server where you can talk about Arrow with me personally. That will be in the top pinned comment of the comment section. Follow me on Twitter to stay up to date with me as well outside of YouTube. Make sure you check out my Flash review if you haven't already. That will be appearing in these videos alongside me. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you vigilantes, about to say speedsters, in the next video. Goodbye.